And thank you for staying with us on the Daybreak, a show coming to you live from our studio here in the nation's capital. Now, over the years, the power sector in Nigeria has not been meeting the needs of Nigerians despite the huge investment to meet the nation's demand. As part of the measures to improve the electricity in Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has signed into law the Electricity Act Amendment Bill 2024. Now, this act aims to break the monopoly in electricity generation, transmission, and distribution at the national level. It seeks to address the development and environmental concerns of host communities and set aside 5% of the actual annual operating expenditures of power generating companies from the preceding year for the development of their respective host communities. This new law further provides that the funds set aside for the development of host communities will be received, managed, and administered for infrastructure development in the host communities by a reputable trustee and manager to be jointly appointed by the respective GenCo and their host community. To discuss all of this in order for Nigerians to understand the benefits of this to every Nigerian, we have in the studio Dr. Abubakar Atiku Tambawal. He is the former Managing Director of Transmission Company of Nigeria. He is also the board of Abuja Electricity Distribution Company of Nigeria, Director in Data Analytics and Solution Limited, and an associate professor in the Department of Electronics and Electrical Engineering, danfodiyo University in Sokoto. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
And also in the studio, we have Engineer Kingsley Odo. He was the technical advisor to the former Minister of Power and also the founder of Synthesis Technologies Limited. Good morning, Engineer. Thank you.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right, let's head on. Doctor, let's start with you. This bill, we saw it happened. It was passed in 2023, but then now in 2024, there is a revise of it. So can you give us the key changes introduced in this bill?
Thank you. The bill, as you rightly said, was already passed into law, but then thereafter, there are some concerns which were expressed by Nigerians, particularly recent. Some state governors have come up with demand for money or for funds because these generating stations were situated in their states. So to address this concern, this amendment was thought and it was passed into law, fundamentally to see how the host communities can benefit or be able to be assisted in terms of infrastructural development from the generating companies. This is also, as in other words, part of corporate social responsibility, which has been taking place, but not in a very systematic way. But this law now has made it mandatory for the generation companies to give out 5% of their annual operating expenses to the host communities in order to help the development of those communities.
All right, let's talk to you, Engineer. What is your take in this revised Electric or Power Act bill that was passed?
Thank you very much. Quite frankly, it's a welcome development. I must tell you that the host communities have been experiencing lots of wear and tear. You need to see a typical hydro plant. You will see the movements, the realignments, displacements, and all of this. And so they do suffer a lot. Yes, the generating companies come there, make a lot of money, but the host communities are not directly impacted. So it is a welcome development. It's the beginning point. 5% is good. We believe that as times go on, as things evolve, more amendments will come that would benefit host communities across the country. So yes, it's a welcome development, that we're excited about that.
All right, engineer, let's talk about the overview. I mean, one thing that we're seeing now is that this thing would definitely favor host communities. But how does the average Nigerian also receive, the positive impact of this decision?
Thank you very much. I believe that the first impact is by way of infrastructure. Once that money is targeted at building infrastructure in those communities, for example, build more roads, access roads, electricity, linkages, and all of that, then you would see the impact really positively impact the ordinary man. You're not expecting the Gencos to put monies in their pockets, but it's targeted at building up or ramping up on infrastructure. And so once that happens, you would see the impact in a lot of ways. You would see that the roads are built, waterways are properly channeled, more electricity lines to the communities are built. And so you would see economy, business, and all of this, or even street lightings to these communities, areas where you never saw businesses run into the evenings, you would now see those businesses. So that is a positive impact on those communities, and that's the only way really it will impact them, by way of infrastructure.
All right, let's come back to Doctor. You've worked with the TCN, and you know all the crisis that is, bedeviling the power sector in Nigeria, and how Nigerians are always complaining about not having available power. So how do you think all of this would change the narrative?
Yeah, the new Electricity Act, as we know, is introduced to really make improvements in the power supply delivery in Nigeria by way of having state governments to have their own generation, transmission and distribution entities. And this will definitely improve, because the national grid as it is not robust enough, cannot satisfy all the demands across the country. So if a state is able to come up with its own laws and regulations, just as we had 2 days ago, Oyo State has taken the lead in getting these laws and regulatory body set up. So we expect investors to come in, particularly in mini grids, solar, renewables energy, that can be set up in different parts of the states to address those areas where the grid has not reached. So I think it is a very good development. The Act has also empowered, made it possible for investors to come in and set off 1 megawatt. If you are having a 1 megawatt plant, you don't need a license. You just go straight away and start production. And for distribution entities, any distribution which is less than 100 kilowatt may not require licenses. So it has made it really easy and convenient for investors to come and get electricity in any part of the country, particularly, like I said, where the national grid cannot extend. Yeah.
All right, engineer, let's talk about using your knowledge. How do you think the state would be able to make this work? Do you foresee any challenges?
Yes, there are lots of challenges. Funding challenges are at the forefront of a lot of the challenges. But from what the former MD said, believe me, it's a game changer. I'll just backtrack a little. Recall that at some point, a lot of things in this scheme of what he mentioned were on the exclusive lists. And so to make it really, to incentivize the sector or to make it really exciting for business, it had to be removed from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. It means that previously what you had was only rural electrification, and states were able to deal with only that subset of the entire scheme, rural electrification. But with this development, also adding the Act of 2023 and this recent amendment, it has excited the sector. Now, to your question, are there challenges? Yes, there are. So states have to do something. Beyond Oyo State, a lot of states have started this process. I know in Enugu, Lagos, a whole lot have started the process. I think Delta, a few of them are already doing the works, trying to get their acts signed by their state assemblies, and then moved on. They will now move on to implementation. The real challenge here will be how to attract investment. So signing the law is one thing. Creating the right environment for investors to come in is another thing. So states must begin to find ways to incentivize. I mean, giving lands for free, creating frameworks for ease of repatriation of profits, and all those things must be thought through. Otherwise, it will just be a piece of legislation. And so, to answer your question, the primary challenge they would have is funding. The second one, you and I know, is insecurity. How do I come and put an investment in a place where I know that my investment can go up in flames? I mean, without recourse to anything. And so state governors and states must begin to find ways to create enabling environments, secure environments for that kind of investment. And recall that power investments are huge, and they have long periods of investment even before you start bringing the returns back. So within this time frame, state governors must find a way to secure those investments. They must also find ways to create funding platforms that would aid the investors. For example, you want to build hubs for typical, if it's agro hubs, thank God for what the federal government is doing by this agricultural stuff across the country. So state governors must ride on this to build hubs that would create structures for typical investors. So if it is solar, if it is wind, or mini small hydros, whatever the framework is, the governor and the state management must begin to see where fits what in a short time, so that returns can come, and then incentivize these processes. So two key things are how to incentivize investors, how to deal with security issues. There are a lot more other issues, but at least these are two primary issues.
Top ones. I mean, yes, in what you mentioned, you made mention of a lot of things, and you mentioned that, I mean, before it used to be the rural doing, you know, the lots, and now they're taking it. So what is the, if this is distributed to all different states, I mean, there's huge responsibility for these states now, considering they're not able to even reach the main goal of where they're going to, and this is another added you know, responsibility to the state. So what about the rural? What are the responsibilities that they'll be left with?
You mean the Federal Rural Electricity Agency? Okay, so I'll backtrack a little so that I can give you the entire framework of what exists. Before now, it's only rural electrification. So mini-grids and off-grid frameworks that he mentioned. Mini-grids, off-grids are areas where they call them unserved or underserved communities. So these communities really don't have access to electricity. So what state governors or governments used to do is target those areas, possibly run distribution lines to those areas, and then if they're not able to, they will put small mini and off-grid framework such that they have at least a similitude of a good life, right? Now, with this new act, state governors can now do the entire gamut or invest or create structures, so to say, in the entire gamut. That means they're not only creating rural now, they're now dealing with ISO, which is Independent Systems Operation. They're now dealing with market operation. They're not dealing with even creating transmission infrastructure, creating regulatory agencies that would drive those processes. So it's like they've been really empowered. Now, you spoke about the challenge, but I want to speak to the challenge that leads to the benefit.
Okay.
It's challenging, but any state that's able to incentivize the process, create an enabling environment, investors will bring in the money, they would make the investment happen, and then the state will benefit. So it's a two-way benefit. So yes, there's an initial challenge, but thereafter there are benefits that accrue. And so you must see the benefits to deal with the challenges.
Indeed. Yes. I mean, at the end of the day, Nigerians are always told, just have hope. I mean, the outcome would be better. All right, Doctor, let's hear from you. So how will this Nigeria Electricity Amendment Act address challenges such as electricity theft? I mean, we see that kind of situation and distribution losses.
Yeah, I think the Act has really been very specific on issues of electricity theft, which hitherto has not been given the due attention. There has not been proper legislation, and even at the legal side of it, we have a lot of cases, and then nothing virtually is being done to address this, to criminals as per se, in terms of prosecuting them. So I think the Act has been very specific in coming up with legislative framework to deal with this issue of electricity theft. Believe with what we have seen, there's going to be special courts to deal with this electricity theft, such that it can be done quickly instead of going through the normal legal court system. So there's quite a lot of improvement in that respect, and I believe if it is well implemented, we will be able to curb this menace of electricity or even reduce it to the barest minimum.
All right, Doctor, there is energy, issue in the world globally right now, and power is one thing that affects everything. So I want to digress a bit. In relation to the Niger bilateral agreement about the dam, and then now there is issues, and ECOWAS is literally using Nigeria to block this. Do you think, if Niger should act on creating some dam, it could affect all of this plan for Nigeria?
To my own understanding, the negatives effect, but I think we should be able to overcome it. Even if in the event that they dam the Niger River, which is the source of water to Jeba and Kainji, we could still be able to survive. We have Shiroro, which is independent of that river, and downstream Shiroro is Zungeru, which has just been commissioned to give us up to 700 megawatt. So I think we should be able to overcome whatever is bound to happen in that respect. And remember that we should have proper energy mix, such that we have other sources as our energy source. We have coal, abundance of coal, which has been abandoned virtually, even though it's not so clean, but in our present circumstances, nothing stops us from getting the coal reintroduced for our power generation. We have, on the other side, which has been lingering, the Mambila, which of course is a very huge project that can deliver a lot of megawatt.
The federal government have started.
Yes, so we believe what is happening, if we're able to overcome all the issues there, we should be able to say that in the next couple of years, 5, 10 years, we should be able to get that project completed, and damming of River Niger will really not matter much.
An issue to us. Okay, engineer, let's talk about expectations of Nigerians. How long should Nigerians expect? I mean, we're talking about the short term and the long term. At what point should Nigeria say, okay, we're going to be able to enjoy electricity in the nation full time? And at what for the short time, what should Nigerians at least expect?
Before I answer your question, I would speak to one aspect that Doctor spoke to right now, and it's the area of energy theft. I'll just quickly add a few.
Of course.
That the lifeblood of energy and money assurances or revenue assurances is metering. Our metering gap is quite huge. And so the theft is huge. If you look at the entire framework of the losses that we experience as a nation, so there's a technical jargon that's called aggregated technical, commercial, and collection losses. There are three legs of losses that we lose. So the first is the technical loss, the second is the collection loss, and then the commercial loss. So tackling these losses will drastically reduce theft. So what is proposed is that we must close the metering gap, which is staggering. It's about between 8 to 12 and even more, because we don't have that data. So if we close that gap, if I meter your house properly, chances are that the loss that I would experience is far, far less than if I give you estimated billing. Everybody loses. You lose, government loses, the disco loses. The disco loses as well. So all of this must be dealt with intentionally, that we must close this metering gap, and that's critical. So that is one effective way of reducing theft. Today, everybody steals. The loss level stands at over 50%. And that has been very moderate. Okay, that's answering that. To your question, you said, how long can Nigerians wait? It's a very good question. I also want to speak to the damming on the Cameroon side and on the Niger side. It will affect us if we don't quickly deal with the alternative sources that we have. Because once we know recently when Cameroon was announcing that they would open and that dam, and they kept announcing, and we were afraid that
there was panic.
There was panic in Nigeria that look, it will affect a lot of communities downstream. Now imagine that it is now dammed even more, that the water that we expect in our waterfall, which creates our hydro framework, is reduced in a way. So. And rightfully so, if we create alternatives quickly. And by alternatives, I mean that we must ramp up on our mini-grids and off-grid frameworks. It is critical. We've got sunlight in Nigeria. So those energy mixes are really, really critical. We also have gas. But we've had challenges with gas. Well, I do know that these are challenges that can be dealt with. However, if we ramp up on our gas availability to drive our gas turbines, which gives us about 80% of our energy today, and we also ramp up on our off-grid, mini-grid frameworks in the way that the states are empowered now to be able to drill through very quickly. Once that happens, I will still give an average of about 10 years with consistent work wobbling in the right direction. Then we'll be able to achieve some similitude of stability within a 5-year, 10-year window.
5 year, 10 year for an average Nigerian, it's a long time.
No, we build towards it. So it's not, we're not saying it in 5, 10 years, then that's when, we're saying when you ask the question of stability. So you will experience consistent growth. Today our grid sits between 3,000 to 5,000 megawatts. And now we're going to have the states doing a lot of things, ramping up from that end. And that will put less pressure on the national grid, and then they will take that energy to places that they need it. States who are empowered are doing their own thing. So when you see that build up, gradually, everybody builds up towards one purpose. Between 5, 10 years, we'll see a very massive impact. And it will be significant enough for you to know that, yes, we are really building up. Thank you.
All right, let's come back to Dr. TCN. If they, at this point, if the state should take on this and there is, benefits for them, how are they going to work with, the TCN? What would be the collaboration?
Well, TCN, as you know, is responsible for the system operations. Under it, fundamentally, there's market operations, there's system operator. So I think the system operator is very critical, such that it has to interface with the states that have already started generating. Some of them could be mini grids, which could be interconnected with the grid. So in that case, there has to be proper synergy and coordination between the system operator at the TCN and the system operation, which is going to be established also at the state level. So that has to be very critical, such that we have proper coordination of the power flow across the national grid or the transmission network. So it's very critical. And that is where I think there's a lot of gray areas which has to be properly looked into between this state's generation and the transmission grid.
So is the TCN still going to, will the power distribution?
Yeah, it will still will the power, particularly, like he said, to areas where it is needed in the event that we have states also generating. The states cannot generate all what they need. So TCN or the national grid is still relevant. So we will still have power flow across. So
TCN can do that?
TCN, yeah, it has been capable of doing it. Even now, that's what it has been doing. So it's just to expand its operation such that we have the SCADA and all those controls linked up to take care of the interconnections that may likely happen between new entries, new generation entities that are coming in the states that are likely to feed into the national grid. So that coordination must be there.
But Doctor, let's not forget the TCN can only generate about 5,000. So if there is more to it, would it be capable to,
Let me correct it. It's not TCN generating, it's the generating company generating, wheeling. Yeah, TCN...
transmitting, rather.
Exactly, transmitting 5,000. It is not a stagnant network. Like now, it is expanding. It has its own plan of system transmission expansion, and I believe it is in progress. And with what is happening with national power initiatives, Siemens, we also anticipate improvement in terms of expansion of the grid to about 25,000 megawatts, which was the mandate by the end of that undertaking.
Okay, I would want to hear your answer to this. Engineer previously made mention of what it's not about putting, amending the bill. It's it's about what to expect. What are the federal government putting in place in terms of making sure this thing works? So how do you think the government would ensure the implementation of this? I mean, considering corruption, which we know for a fact that also the TCN in general have had issues of corruption or misappropriation of funds, let's use that word. And now they're saying there will be about 5%. So how do you think the implementation of management of this fund would be able to be done properly?
Well, the Act or the amendment was very explicit. It has stated that a trustee will be established between the GENCOs and the host communities, in which case the state government will also be part of it. So that trustee should be able to warehouse the funds and consider the projects that are relevant and get necessary and due approvals for it to be implemented. So once that is done, I think we'll be able to eliminate all those misappropriations and tendencies of corruption. So I think we have to really be patriotic in that manner, such that whoever is interested in administering the fund should be able to deliver and live up to expectation.
Engineer, do you have faith in the process?
Of course. By process, I suspect you mean the new amendment?
Yes, the amendment bill, of course.
Of course. It's wobbling in the right direction. I can tell you it's the right thing to do. Communities have been agitating for this. If you see these communities, especially in the hydro communities, there's massive movement of people, displacement of people, and there's no assurance that government does anything. Recall that the GENCOs, all they do is they've come there to make money and then build their companies. The only benefit these communities would have is statutory benefits, which this 5% seem to address. And so you're not only coming to make money, you're also trying to build the community. I would say that most GENCOs have actually had CSO in place. That's is it what they call it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, community
social
responsibilities. Sorry, they've had that in place for some of them, but it's not impactful. It's not a statutory demand. So before now, they will do what they like to do, but today, 5% of whatever they make as profit must go to that host community. So yes, if it is well implemented with the board of trustees that is above board and all of those processes that is transparent, then the communities will benefit.
Let's talk about funding. I mean, we don't really know if that 5% will be enough for the state government, to keep everything going. So you made mention earlier of insecurities and a lot of things that the states have to put in place in order to attract investors. So how would you suggest, the states to get funds in order to make sure this Amendment Act benefits their people?
So states are already fighting insecurity with or without the GENCOs. Right. So they must deal with their own issues, and the mandate of governance is that you must deal with welfare of the people, security of the people, making sure this is the core of the mandate on you as government. So in addressing this, it's clear that the states will already be doing what they're doing. So they're not waiting for the GENCO 5% to deal with the issues of insecurity. In any case, for you to attract investors to your state, you must deal with this whether GENCOs are there or not. And because beyond GENCOs, so it's a benefit to you that GENCOs are in the process. So that's additional 5% that you can see and target. But you're already dealing with issues of insecurity, the welfare of the people, good governance, and all of this. So as a state governor, this is just an added fund in delivering on your mandate. So I believe that they will not be looking only at this 5% to deliver on the core mandate that they have been elected to deal with. So my thinking clearly is, yes, this 5% is an added fund, and it is, if you as a governor, if you know that you have, for example, Niger State has massive, they have Kenji, I'm correct?
Yeah.
They have Shiroro, and they have Jebba. Niger State is sitting as king, for example. So if they are wise, I'd expect Niger State to put their own sincere and upright person who sits as one of the trustees to administer this process, so that they can truly see that 5% is 5%. And look at them now, for example, these 5%, that works out to be 15%, and plus other things that they will do. So it's exciting for states who have, that have massive investors in the, or investment in the GENCO frameworks.
Framework. Let's hear your thoughts, Doctor, on the framework.
Yeah, I think what he said is quite right. But I also want to add that even before this act, we have Hyperdeck, and that is meant to address the issues of hydro power generating areas. This includes Niger, of course, as he said, Kebbi, and Kwara, and others. So that is also a source of funding, and it is being well taken care of by federal government. So in addition to this 5%, or what the Electricity Act has provided, I think there is massive funding for these states to be developed if it is properly put into use.
Okay, so at the end of the day, Doctor, it's all about, you know, a giving. It's like a business you're giving out, so definitely there is so much expectations. So talking about investors, you know, in electricity sector, is there any incentive that's been put in place in order to benefit and attract investors to come and invest in the electricity sector?
Well, I think, as he rightly said, one of the incentive for these investors is to provide enabling environment for them. Security, as he said, number one. Then there are a lot of other things like tax rebates, a lot of issues to do with repatriation of their profits, easy repatriation, and also the state governments now should be able to attract the investors by providing free lands, as he rightly said. For them, if it is solar, we know it involves massive hectares of land. So this should be able to be provided to the investors. Even if the state government want to put it as part of their equity, there is no harm to it. And these are the issues that investors will look forward to, for them to be able to. And also another thing which is very imperative here is the tariff. We all know solar or photovoltaic tariff worldwide is quite much higher than the conventional generation. So that has to be looked into so that a proper tariff affordable to the end users, and also that will enable the investors to recoup their investment within the stipulated time. It's very important for that. So PPAs, when they are going to be signed, either by off-takers, whether it is the state government, whether it is industries or whatever, or even the distribution companies who are owners of the distribution network, they have to sit down together and agree on a tariff. And NEC, or the necessary regulatory body in the state, must be able to come in and provide that appropriate tariff for them to be able to invest.
All right, you made mention of the NEC. What would be their role in all of this?
Well, NEC is still relevant because if you have any interstate generation, I think the state regulators cannot function there once it has crossed 2 states or more. So NEC is still in charge. And whereby also you need to have a large plant or distribution companies which will serve different or many states. So you cannot charge state regulators in that regulation. It is NEC that will ultimately determine the licensing and regulatory authority over these investors.
Okay. Well, we hope that everything will pan out well. Engineer, I would want to hear your thoughts on all of this. Now, some states have already started the initiative of this in order to benefit their states, and others are still in the contemplating, we're still working on it stage. So what would be your advice for, both the states that are already making the steps and the ones that are still yet to start making that decision?
Thank you very much, and that's a very, very interesting question. Doctor mentioned something about interconnection points. We call them boundary points. Critically, a typical transmission line will radiate across states, right? And so if a state wants to invest in its own transmission network, it means that it will either partner with existing TCM or run its own network. Now, if you are picking power or load in our industry from another state, then interconnection becomes necessary. So you're going to see a play of boundary meters, a play of give and take at those boundaries. If a state typically generates more than it can consume, it can sell to other states, or it can even sell to the grid. So at that point, there's going to be interconnection points with boundary meters. So when energy is flowing from my state into the other state or into the grid, it is metered and paid for. So the national MO, which is the market operator that does the settlements, which sits today on that Transmission Company of Nigeria, would settle those payments. Now, coming back to within your state, if you're able to generate, transmit, and distribute, you have no business with NERC, you have no business with TCM, you have no business with any of these national bodies. But once you are moving or taking energy from another state or from the grid into your own state, either to complement your existing, then you must sign those PPAs. So it's a very massive interplay. It's exciting. That's why your MO in your state must be effective, market operator. And your ISO, which is your SO, systems operator, that does your dispatch, because it's an interesting interplay. So you will see that on the dispatch board, I'm able to see the energy that's gone, energy that is coming. I'm able to meter it properly and get paid for, or for that service. So it's a very exciting time if well implemented.
It does sound exciting.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, due to time constraint, of course, I would want to hear from Dr. Tambawal. Last remark in all of this.
Well, he has touched the issue of metering, which is really very critical and it's affecting almost everybody in Nigeria. Just recently, NEC has slammed charge of, I think, 10.5 billion on the distribution companies for over $1 billion of the capped customers, or rather those on estimate. And for it to be implemented, we await NEC directives on what each distribution company is going to pay its estimated customers who have been overestimated. So that, of course, is going to be paid over in credit in the next billing cycle. They will be credited with whatever is due to them. So I think the issue of metering is very fundamental. It has to be properly looked into by the distribution companies so that we eliminate this overestimation or crazy billing. And as he rightly said, it is only through metering that we'll be able to even account for the energy. Billing inefficiency is very low, which means a lot of power is being lost even before it is being billed. So these are issues which has to be drastically addressed for the industry to move forward.
Indeed, Doctor. I think Nigerians will be grateful for this, you pointing that out, and hopefully something will be done about that. All right, quickly, Engineer, closing remark on all of this. I know that for a fact you have a huge insight on this amendment bill.
Yes, thank you very much. I can tell you that Nigeria is work in progress. We're not there yet, but I am very positive that we'll get there. And energy is a major leap forward for any society, any community. If we really put our hands on this plow and not look back and implement these things that we have signed in as laws and the amendments, and state governments are really excited, because I've seen that some states don't even know what's happening right now.
Indeed.
And that's a challenge. So, so a lot of awareness. Energy is a commodity that must be paid for. We must get away from the notion that energy is like social service. Energy is business. It's like going to the shop and buying coffee or whatever, and you pay for it. So everybody must know as Nigerians that for the energy sector to move forward, there must be the willingness of everybody to pay for what is consumed. Now, I do know that there are lots of insincerity across the value chain. So to plug that and to cure that cancer, we need to be able to effectively, boldly carry out a metering process, because that is the first cure. The second cure is the discos, the distribution companies must also come. He that speaks to equity must come with clean hands. The discos must find ways to truly, this is 10 years, to truly say, look, you know what? Let us begin to help the system to grow. Transmission company, across the value chain, all parties must put their hands on this plow and be determined to move away from this 3,000, 5,000 megawatts ding-dong that we have had in the last God knows how many years. So we must now begin to deal with this, to say, and let there be consequences as well. What has just happened now is the beginning point. While I don't know the full details of it and how it will be implemented, but I do know that there should be consequences for things that are not done properly, and also reward for things that are done properly. Once all of these things are in place, the power sector is the beginning point and the lifeblood of any community. And I pray that we're able to put our hands on this plow and run with it.
Amen
Thank you very
to that.
much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Kingsley Odo, the former advisor or technical advisor to the former Minister of Power, also founder of Synthesis Technologies Limited. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And Dr. Tambawal Abubakar Atiku, thank you so much for joining us, former Managing Director of Transmission Company of Nigeria, the TCN, also in the board of Abuja Electricity Distribution Company of Nigeria, Director in Data Analytics and Solution Limited, and much more, honestly. So I appreciate your time also, Doctor.
You're welcome.